Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Schwartz. I'm with Happy Family Brands Organics, and I will be speaking to you today about breastfeeding and what I wish I knew in the early days of breastfeeding. I'm a mom of two small kids. They're now 7 and 5, almost 6, actually. But we had quite the breastfeeding journey, both of them in different ways. And really, I learned so much from that experience that I really love sharing it with other families, parents, anyone really that'll listen about breastfeeding. So today I'm really excited that we have this opportunity to be virtual so we can connect today about what I learned. So one of the biggest things as a certified lactation counselor and registered dietitian I find is we get so many questions on like, what am I doing wrong? Or what, sort of what is happening and is it my fault or it's something I'm doing that's not what I should be doing. And even though I shared the topic being like what I wish I knew, it's not that breastfeeding is a certain way for every mom. And that's what I really want to share is that breastfeeding, even though it seems to be and is a very natural process, all mammals were born essentially to breastfeed, it doesn't always happen that way for every mother or anyone that is attempting to breastfeed. So I want to just kind of give that assurance that, as long as you're trying your best and that you're reaching out for help if you need it, that really is all we can do and all we can really ask ourselves as a mom. But there are definitely some things that I'll share now that really do help prepare you and just that are good to know so that before you do maybe have a problem or before a problem might start, you have some education and support that can help prevent that. So one of the biggest things is early on, we develop right after we have the infant, right after birth, right after delivery, our body naturally produces a product called colostrum. So a lot of mothers think that the milk just comes flowing immediately after delivery and that the infant will latch on easily. And then this milk that we see in those bottles, that white sort of yellowish white milk, more white than yellow really, is going to just start flowing out after delivery. And our body wasn't designed to work that way, mainly because when the baby is born, the baby's stomach is super, super small. And matter of fact, the day one, the infant's stomach is only the size of a small cherry. So I don't know if you guys did cherry picking this season or if you've had cherries recently, but cherries are super tiny. Matter of fact, it ends up being about a half a teaspoon. Like that's all the real volume that a baby in the first day can accommodate. So we're not going to have the, volume of milk that a lot of us think about. It's that thick, literally drops of colostrum that we produce the first, sometimes 5 days. I had the colostrum for 5 days and that seemed like an eternity and I wanted that milk to come through and it did. It can take up to that long for some moms. So definitely anticipate the milk to be a different texture, a different volume those first 5 days. Day 3, the baby's stomach's the size of a walnut. So again, super, super small, and that's about 1 teaspoon or 1 ounce. So any moms that do potentially pump do know that you're not going to have the 2 ounces, 3 ounces, 4 ounces right away in that bottle because our bodies just aren't intended to produce that much right away. Now, by week 1, the baby and the mother milk should be certainly coming in by then. So if it's not, I would really reach out to your OB or some provider, lactation consultant, anyone that can assist you in lactation support. And ask, maybe if they can kind of see or measure the weight of the baby to see if maybe you are transferring that milk if you're nursing at the breast. If you're pumping, of course, you'll see that. But sometimes it's hard to know how much you're actually producing if you are nursing at the breast. And I'll talk about that a little more later. But basically, just know that each day, particularly up to that first week, you're not going to be producing likely even up to 1 ounce. So it's nothing wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. This is exactly as you should be. And it's just that it's accommodating that the baby's super small and is nursing very frequently also. See, instead of giving, let's say, as like a couple-month-old infant, maybe you're giving like 8 bottles or nursing at the breast 8 to 10 times or so a day, sometimes more if you're cluster feeding. but you're going to be nursing very, very frequently the first few days, the first month even. So that's why you're producing this small amount of volume, but you're going to be nursing so frequently that that little stomach is going to be emptying and then hungry again to feed again in maybe an hour or maybe 2 hours. And I know that might sound scary that, oh my gosh, am I always going to have this baby nursing on me? And the answer is kind of. In the beginning, there is going to be that more frequent nursing. But from my own experience, especially with a 7 and 5-year-old, I would go back to those days anytime. It is such an amazing bonding experience. It's such an amazing time to get to know your infant. And it really is such like a slow one-on-one experience that I will never forget. And I always would love a mother to have that experience if possible. So it can be a little tough, but frequent nursing is normal. If the baby seems fussy, that's also normal. They don't really know how to communicate. So it's not that your milk isn't enough. It's not that, you're not latching right necessarily. It's just that the baby is adjusting. I mean, this is a brand new environment. This is a brand new lights and temperature. I mean, they're just adjusting to so many things. So try to have faith in yourself too, that again, our bodies were born and made to do this. Again, there may be some medical histories and challenges to have to cope with and to have to modify, but we are built to do this. And as long as we're reaching out for support, as long as we are doing our best to nurse frequently, to pay attention to different things going on with the infant, like if you see that the infant isn't latching right, well, then there definitely are support to help with the latch. And if you have no idea what a right latch is, we at Happy Family do have a very supportive chat where you can come on. It's completely free that you can come on for additional lactation support, and as well as other resources out there like your OBs I mentioned. So I also want to mention that, we don't want to nurse on the clock. I said that the nursing frequency is going to be based on what your baby's asking, or just, knowing that for the most part, when they fuss, it probably means they need to nurse, or maybe check the diaper too. So it's a matter of just, paying attention and cueing into your baby's cues. Some things I did want to talk about regarding the baby's cues is, knowing like when to feed. That's like sometimes I didn't know. I'm like, well, my baby's crying. Does that mean, they're definitely hungry, or is it that they have, gas or something? A lot of babies have gas. So it can be a combination of a lot of things. But typically though, again, you're nursing very frequently, could be up to 12 or more times per 24 hours, which does include overnights. Sorry, moms. I know moms-to-be. I know that sounds kind of difficult, but again, such amazing bonding time to just spend that time. You'll get your sleep. You just might have to sleep when the baby sleeps. You'll have more interval-based sleep in the first month or so, but it's definitely normal for them to wake up and stay on that same clock that they maybe did during the day. So again, the baby's likely getting what they need. It's just that's how often they have to nurse. So some other things that I wanted to share that I was learning or wish I knew a little more when I was first starting off is these cues. I mentioned, like, how do I really know when my baby definitely is hungry? So I want to share there's these 3 different states of sort of the baby's awareness. The one is called a light sleep state. And that is where you'll see like the baby's eyes flutter a little bit. And it's like they're not quite awake, but they're not quite asleep. That's actually a really good time to feed the baby. That's before the baby is over hungry. It's before they are fussy. So it's actually, you're not waking the baby up because they're, again, kind of in a light sleep state, but that's a really good time. So just paying attention to, is your baby sleeping there, eyes fluttering a little bit, maybe you scoop them out of the crib, scoop them out of the bassinet, whatever you have to be with your baby. And that's when you might start the nursing session again. So that's actually a really good time. Another one is called the quiet alert state. And that's when the baby's eyes are open this time, but they're not like overly moving the bodies or opening and closing hands or like turning the head side to side, which is called rooting. That is actually a different state. That's called the active alert. And that's actually the 3rd state I wanted to mention, where it's really the baby is over hungry and actually waited a little too long to start your nursing session. So trying to pay attention to those 3 states, the light sleep, quiet alert, and then the active alert. And you don't have to memorize the names, but just kind of knowing that most infants do have those different 3 states. and that by paying attention and aiming for more of a light or partially alert state is a much better state to start the feed. So I really wish I knew that, because I would wait until the baby was crying and fussy, and I'm like, oh, okay, well now he needs to eat. It was a little too late. Then the latching got a little harder, because once they're aggravated, then, or kind of overly frustrated, I should say. Babies probably don't get aggravated yet, but overly frustrated with being too hungry, then it's more difficult, especially in the early days, for them to latch. I relate it to myself. Like, I call it hangry, when you're like really hungry, when you, like I say, work through lunch, or like you're getting off work late, or you're busy and you don't have your normal lunch or dinner schedule on. It's like you literally get almost like angry hungry. So that's kind of how I relate it to human or adults, adults versus infants, but trying to pay attention and plan ahead for that. If you're going to be shopping or you're going to be out and about, maybe try to time those errands around when the baby might be sleeping or might be in a light sleep, and that's when you can nurse before you run into that active alert, aka kind of hangry baby syndrome. Okay, so I also wanted to say, even though our bodies were made to nurse, and that, not every mom might choose to, and that's totally your choice. But if that is really your dream and that's really what you would like to do, there are sometimes issues that do come up. Maybe the latch isn't working, or maybe, you're having some pre-existing condition that is delaying your milk from coming in, or it's just you're not producing quite enough. And that's a reality that can certainly happen for moms, but it's definitely not the majority of the cases. So know that most of the time you might think that you're not making a lot of milk, but you're probably making more than you think. And one of the reasons is that pumping, a lot of moms like to pump to see how much they're making. Or pediatricians will say, well, why don't you pump to see and bottle feed, how much you're making? That can be like a slippery slope, especially in the first month, because when you're pumping, you'll see that the pump does not remove milk as effectively and efficiently as a newborn. Again, the newborn, if the latch is right, if it's a nice deep latch, should remove the milk a lot more efficiently than a double electronic pump even. And that's just, again, nature versus synthetic, right? Like, pumps do their best job to take the milk out, and they do a great job, but they're just not the same connection, and you're not getting all the same stimulation that you do when an infant is attached to your breast. You're getting the smell of the infant, you're getting the touch, you're getting all those sensations that really, again, our bodies were made to experience and feel all those physical sensations to then elicit the hormones in our brain to then let down the milk. It's such an amazing physiological process, which I know this talk's not about, but just know that there is so much biology and physiology when it comes to breastfeeding. So trying to do as much skin to skin, not saying don't pump if the baby is not latching and you have to pump, absolutely pump. But I'm saying the more that you can nurse at your breast and the more that it can be skin to skin, not only the more milk you'll produce at that moment, but the more milk you'll produce long term. Moms that exclusively pump or think, okay, I'm just going to exclusively pump my baby instead of nursing. Again, that's totally your choice, and I support every mom's choice. But I do notice that a lot of those moms tend to run into milk supply issues, and that does relate again to their lacking the prolactin hormone kind of not being stimulated quite as much as when it is nursing at the breast. So just trying to add some nursing sessions in as much as you can. And then if you, again, are not nursing, that's totally fine too. Just maybe then hold a baby piece, a blanket or something, or maybe even hold your baby while you are pumping, but trying to get some more, sort of physical touch and physical sensations to help with your pumping. But let's say you're doing all that, you're doing the nursing, you're doing the pumping, or you're doing just the nursing, and we're still concerned, or the doctor gets concerned that you're not producing enough. Sometimes pediatricians are a little over concerned about the weight gain with the infants that are breastfed, because they don't follow the same curve that the CDC has, with the breastfeeding charts or with the growth charts. Those are mainly for the bottle-fed babies. So there's a combination. The World Health Organization has a different chart that's a little more reliable. You could reference that or ask them to reference that. But certainly, of course, we want the baby to gain weight. We don't want the baby not getting enough. So besides for the growth chart, I do want to share that by tracking the number of wet and soiled diapers per day, that is extra information that you can provide your pediatrician to know that if your baby really is getting what they need. So usually what we say is 6 to 8 wet diapers per 24 hours, and then anywhere between 2 to 4 soiled diapers per 24 hours. And again, this can vary, but as long as, I do recommend keeping track. I used to have like a phone app. I would do like all of our nursing sessions, how many diapers, like especially the first couple weeks, 2 to 4 weeks when you're going to the pediatrician a lot to get checked. And they did the same thing to me. They're always saying, well, we're not sure. Are you sure the baby's getting enough? And I said, well, I'm tracking. I'm doing additional things. Like I would go and to the breastfeeding support groups and weigh my baby before I fed the baby, and then weighed the baby after. And then I calculated the number of ounces that were transferred, and it was fine. So some babies just grow a little slower. Again, those growth feeding charts are not always the same for breastfeeding babies. So just, again, try to trust your body. Try to know that, this is a journey. It's not going to be maybe figured out in day one, or maybe, it might take a month or so to really get this breastfeeding thing down. But, with trying, with consistency, with a lot of love and support, I can't tell you enough how much I reached out to my sister, to my mom, to my lactation consultant that helped me before I delivered. I had done a class as well, which I also say always, if you can, take a breastfeeding class just to even learn the pump thing, if that ends up being, because it was kind of overwhelming. Like, how do I put the flange into the wire tube? And anyway, I didn't have a lot to support to watch beforehand. So I definitely was thankful to have the class for just some visual support. And let's face it, like online, like there's so much online these days too that you can watch, YouTube, etc., to help support what you need to know for the pump, and maybe even just the latch too. Like I loved watching videos after on really what a latch should look like. So the more you can prepare yourself beforehand, either through videos, hanging out with other breastfeeding moms, a class, anything to add more confidence, because really sometimes this comes down to just being confident in your body, being confident that this is a process and it's not necessarily something that's going to be figured out right away or easy, but it really can become that way. It's just a matter of practice, consistency, and a lot of love for your baby, a lot of love for, the gift of breastfeeding. So that's really what I wanted to share today, was just that there are a lot of little nuances to this journey, and that really when it comes down to it, we are made to breastfeed as if that's the choice the mom makes. So if that's what you are committed to doing, just keep trying that consistency of nursing frequently, making sure, you're not, you're getting that contact with the baby, and that, you're keeping track of things just to make sure that the baby's, getting enough. In addition to the diapers and the pediatrician, I did want to mention that you can listen while the baby's nursing. So if the baby's on the breast and you don't hear any like sucks and swallows, that can be another indicator that the latch maybe isn't sealed properly, or that the baby's not using that sort of rocking rhythm properly. So definitely reach out to get support if you notice any of those things going on as early as you can. And I think that's all the time I have. I don't know if there's any questions that might come in, but again, my name is Andy Schwartz. I'm with the Happy Family Mentor Experts. We're a lactation support group with Happy Family Organics, and we can be found on their website. And we would love to help and support, moms to be, or again, when you are breastfeeding, to help you along this wonderful but sometimes rocky journey. And congratulations again to all the pregnant moms out there. Enjoy this wonderful time.